What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here at FedEx Field shortly after the Vikings' 38-26 loss to the Washington Redskins, which is a perfect example of the sort of game for why you can never analyze NFL statistics in a vacuum. Because if you look at the box score after this game, you'd probably think there's a pretty decent chance the Minnesota Vikings came out on top. They outgained the Redskins by 60 yards. They had 27 first downs. They're 8 of 17 offensively on third down in this game. They won the time of possession battle with 31 and a half minutes, too. But you look at the number of missed opportunities early on and the number of key execution errors that they had on both sides of the football in big spots. That's how they end up losing this football game. Starts out in the first quarter. You need to be able to put the ball in the end zone, and there's something that's not quite working offensively, whatever it is. There's one play in particular. It's a second down play. I think it's second and goal at about the 5-yard line. Percy Harvin's in the backfield. They scored on a draw play from that formation last week. They fake the draw. They try to wedge a ball into Devin Aromashadu with a guy in his back pocket. I don't want to be throwing the ball to Devin Aromashadu in the red zone. I'm looking to the playmakers. I'm looking to Kyle Rudolph. I'm looking to Percy Harvin. And later in the game, in some of those no-huddle situations, they did a far more effective job with ball distribution. But a lot of times where they were getting into those areas, they were not effective. Adrian Peterson took some of it on himself, saying that running the football in some of those situations, he was putting them in bad spots because he was too tentative in the early going and felt that he kept them from being on schedule in those situations. But a lot of things worked together where a quarter that it felt like they so thoroughly dominated. Antoine Winfield with an interception, 3 long drives. They're only up 9-0 in the early going. And then all of a sudden, once the Redskins got that little bit of momentum, really with the door opening on the Christian Ponder fumble play, the linebacker runs through Adrian Peterson, causes the ball to come out of Ponder's hand, sets up a touchdown. That all of a sudden really shifted the momentum over to the Redskins' way. You had a lot of things that weren't going right defensively, just in terms of execution. There weren't a lot of times where guys were getting blown out of their gaps, but there were a lot of plays out there that weren't being made, and some of those gaps started opening up a little bit too much. Robert Griffin, on the first touchdown run that he had, Troy Guion just gets a little bit out of his gap. Harrison Smith gets blocked up at the next level, and Griffin's able to dive into the end zone. The 76-yard touchdown late, which was really the nail in the coffin in this game. It's a 6-man pressure. That blitz has to get home. It's not unlike something that happened in Indianapolis where they try to blitz Andrew Luck, pressure gets blocked up, all of a sudden that guy's got too much time, and you got guys on the back end who are in rough spots. Chris Cook loses vision on the play, doesn't contain it, doesn't keep it inside. Griffin gets to the edge, and he's gone. Those are just key things that can happen. Ponder, for whatever reason, the ball was coming out of his hand. It just didn't look right today. He downplayed the wind as a factor. I think, at least in the early going, that might have played into it a little bit in the intermediate passing game. But the ball that ends up getting picked off by Madu Williams, of all people, in return for a pick six, that's one that just flat out slips out of his hand. And some of those things happen. People are going to point to, well, Ponder all of a sudden he's had all these turnovers after not turning over the ball so much. Analyze his turnovers in this game. One of them is him getting hit in the back while he's trying to throw in rhythm in about 2 seconds. I'll have to go back and time it, but it was a pretty quick hit on Christian Ponder. I can't put that one on him. Yes, the freak ball that comes out of his hand and goes straight up in the air, straight to Madu Williams, that's on Ponder. But the last interception, they're in desperation mode. They're trying to make something happen. Of course, you're going to take some shots in that area. I can't entirely put it on Ponder. He missed some open receivers today. Certainly didn't play the best game we've seen him play. But you had issues up front. You had Adrian Peterson, admittedly, not making some of the plays that he felt he should have made. You had dropped balls. You had guys like Kyle Rudolph just not bringing in balls that normally you're going to see them haul in. On the defensive side of the ball, they didn't have a great pass rush today, and it's tough when they're doing all those play-action fakes because you got the linebackers who are being held, they got to play the run first, and then they got to drop back. What they were able to do is by faking some of that option stuff, that read option, fake the handoff, that holds the linebackers for a second. All of a sudden those in-breaking routes are wide open, especially when you're not pressing, which they finally, mercifully started doing, especially with Chris Cook in the second half. These are relatively basic things. A lot of them piled up. Let's also remember this. The Vikings are sitting here at 4-2. If you go 4-4 on the road in the course of an NFL season, that's pretty good because it's not easy to win on the road. The Washington Redskins are not a bad football team either. You saw a quarterback today who certainly, when he's been able to stay on the field, he took fewer chances in terms of taking on contact at the edges, but he really got something going. That defense made some plays, but they were also handed some plays in this game. The pass rush was a little better than I thought it was. They're 3-3 now, the Washington Redskins are. That's a pretty decent football team. You're not going to win week in, week out. Anybody who thought the Vikings were all of a sudden going to go 15-1 because they'd figured some things out are underestimating where this team is at, the fact that they are still young, they do have some holes. They did a great job covering them up the past 3 weeks. Today they didn't cover those up. You had some of your playmakers nicked up between Percy Harvin and Adrian Peterson, Jerome Simpson not playing in this game, and I'm really interested to see what exactly happens over the course of this next week, whether or not Simpson is able to get back in the flow of the offense, because I think that makes a difference as well. They're a flawed team, but everybody in the NFL is flawed. It's how you deal with those flaws, how you overcome them. On this day, I don't know that it was necessarily a bad game plan by any stretch, but they certainly didn't execute within the game plan to the same degree that they did the past 3 weeks. They allowed a home fan base here that probably wanted to boo and that had seen 8 consecutive losses in this building. They allowed the crowd to get into the game. You could feel the momentum swelling over, particularly after that fumble, setting up the touchdown right before the half. That was a huge momentum shifter in this game. Now the Vikings got to bounce back, though. 2 home games in a 5-day stretch this week. I'm not going to say it's going to go a long way to determining the course of their season, because we're still getting a feel for exactly where this Minnesota Vikings team is. But when you get teams like Arizona and Tampa Bay, those are games you should win at home, and they want to go unbeaten at the Metrodome this season. 2 big tests for them before that second half of the season, where all those games against the Packers and the Bears and the Texans, again, a Seattle team that's playing really well right now too. That looks awfully daunting. At this point, as Kevin Williams said, they won the first quarter. They went 3-1. Now they got to win the second quarter, and that means winning these next 2 games back at home. I'm headed onto a flight in like 4 hours here, so I should probably get out of the press box now. But full Vikings coverage at 1500 ESPN.com. We'll see you.